The following review video features materials protected by the Fair Use Guidelines of Section 107 of the Copyright Act. Kamen Rider and the associated mediums belong to Toei Company, Ishimori Productions, and Shotaro Ishinomori. Please support the official release.
Hey everybody, I'm Kralo, and Henshin! Alright, I still can't do that. Anyway, we're on to the second episode of the Decade Reviews. Only took Toei blocking the video twice. Anyway, last time, Tsukasa gained the ability to henshin and become Kamen Rider Decade, and we arrived in the world of Kuuga, which the boss actually does have some experience with. You see, before doing Decade, they were planning on tackling all the Heisei-era Kamen Riders in order, starting with the first one, Kuuga. They even had gotten to episode 3 or 4 of Kuuga before calling it quits, for the already explained reason of watching 3 to 4 times just to get multiple notes down from multiple viewpoints, and it got exhausting watching the same episode 3 to 4 times in a week. But this means we're familiar with the lore of Kuuga slightly. Remember, the boss never finished Kuuga personally, despite owning the DVD that Shout Factory sold, and even has the special poster. The lore of Kuuga is this guy named Yusuke Godai finds this belt that lets him henshin into Kamen Rider Kuuga and fights unidentified life forms who are known as the Gorongi to protect humanity, or as the Gorongi call them, the Rinto. And that's all the info we have on Kuuga. Sure, we could give a more detailed plot summary about it, but we get the basic idea here. Now let's get on to the review. Now, after a recap of the last episode, which if you want a more in-depth one, check out our last video, we cut to the grandpa saying that the TV isn't working before a cop walks in saying that there's a villain here. Or rather, Tsukasa joking around before getting hit by Natsuki's laughing pressure points. However, after the gag is done, Natsumi and Tsukasa read a newspaper and learn of the unidentified life forms, or the Grongi, as they're known in this world. As a side note, the wiki refers to the unidentified life forms as the Gurongi, while the episode refers to them as Grongi. And we're going to use the episode's name, as fan wikis are often wrong or have misinformation made by fans that are never sourced, and sometimes end up as official because a writer will check the fan wiki to get info on something that didn't have an answer originally. Anyway, we learned that Kuuga is known as Unidentified Life Form 4, and that Tsukasa, screw it, we'll be calling him Decade from now on. Decade's role in this world is that of a cop, and as Natsumi goes outside to chase him, she notices that the photo shop is on a completely new street, and has the logical reaction of, what the hell? Now we cut to a female cop helping Kuuga, who isn't represented by the original actor Joe Odagiri, but rather a new actor named Ryota Morai. And this is later shown by the fact that Kuuga isn't Godai Yusuke, the original Kuuga, but Yusuke Onodera, or Onodera Yusuke, as the boss man isn't familiar with how Japanese names work. Now, skimming the wikis, it gives a simple explanation that the OG actor didn't want to come back to Kamen Rider, and while he views Kuuga as an overall positive experience, it was just a part of his career he didn't want to return to. As to why Kyoru Ichijo was gender swapped in this series, that's anyone's guess. Now anyways, back to the episode. Ai Yashiro, the female cop, helps Kuuga defeat the unidentified life forms while Decade watches and takes photos, which honestly I feel would get him into either some kind of trouble or maybe have his camera taken away by her. But after that, Kuuga in his civilian form begins to beg Yashiro to praise him or at least take him out to eat, though she tells him to get rest. Now at the police station, we learn that this was the third victim of the Grongi and that all the victims were female cops. But as Decade snoops around to learn more, spilling tea around aimlessly, they get reports of another Grongi attack to which the cops mobilize. At the scene of the crime, we see a Minotaur-looking dude attacking a cop car, and Decade shows up to fight him, though when Kuuga and Yashiro arrive, Decade finishes off the monster, and Yashiro calls him Unidentified Life Form 10, which is fitting since Decade is another word for 10, well, at least 10 years, but it still fits. Anyway, Decade flees the scene. We cut to the photo shop where Natsumi wakes up from a nap only to find Kuuga and Yashiro coming in, thinking it was a coffee shop. Though they try and leave, Grandpa comes in and offers them snacks. And while they drink, Kuuga says he'll defeat Decade, though Yashiro says he might be able to help them since he's fighting the Grongi as well. And Decade takes a photo of the two, apparently having been there the whole time, and while Decade and Kuuga get into a pissing match before Kuuga leaves in a huff. Though Natsumi follows Kuuga, talking to him as he fails to start his bike. It's honestly a nice scene as they both talk about how they want to help their friends. We then cut to Decade being a jerk to the cops, while explaining that the Grongi are killing women cops in a list of birthdays or something. It's all a ruse to get the cops distracted while Decade does his plan. He lures Yashiro to a remote area and punches her in the face, causing a nosebleed. Now, context-wise, it makes more sense. See, while there were murders, each of the kills were done without spilling blood, and now the ritual has been broken. However, as he henshins, Kuuga reacts to the name Decade, and it's not a good reaction. Kuuga calls Decade the devil and says he is here to kill all riders, and considering how the first episode opened, he might not be wrong. It's clear Decade has some kind of amnesia, but as the two fight, this strange man shows up and says Decade shouldn't be in this world. This is Narutaki, and we won't learn his deal for a while. But for those episodes, he's the one who gave Kuuga his belt. And we end episode 2 with 2 new Kamen Riders fighting Kuuga and Decade. Now on to episode 3. We resume the fight with the 2 new riders who claim to be from Hell, which, considering that this is a kid show, is kinda cool. Also, it gives us an excuse to use this clip from Toei Spider-Man. However, that fight was short-lived due to them both being sucked back into the Aurora Curtain, which is that weird thing we saw back in episode 1. And we cut to Natsumi breaking Decade's nose and yelling at him for fighting Kuuga, while Yashiro asks Kuuga why he attacked Decade, to which he explains that he was warned that Decade was the devil by Narutaki. However, the day is not saved, as when the cops go to kill the Ultimate Darkness the Grongi were trying to revive, it seems he was revived after all. And we cut to the mountain where smoke is coming from, and Decade just punches the Ultimate Darkness in the face, who's confused as to why he's even awake. It seems he was never supposed to be awoken, before Decade gets punched in the gut and the sparks start flying, as the Ultimate Darkness says the humans will be turned into Grongi. We then cut to the hospital where Kuuga is trying to see Yashiro, who's in critical condition. Decade goes off to fight the Ultimate Darkness while Kuuga mopes around the hospital until with her dying breath, Yashiro says, "Go help Decade and make me smile one last time." We then cut to Decade getting his ass kicked before Kuuga shows up. Decade makes a speech about how Kuuga is fighting for the smiles of everyone, and then says his catchphrase of, "He's just a passing through Kamen Rider," before the two henshin and beat up the mooks before Decade's power unlocks, and he pulls out a new card, transforming Kuuga into a beetle, before killing the Ultimate Darkness. With the day saved, we return to the hospital, where I'm sure Yashiro is just fine, she's dead. Kuuga mourns her, and we cut to the photo shop where Decade and Natsumi talk about what they did, how they saved the world. He even took a decent photo, which Grandpa actually tried to frame, before flipping the picture thing and heading off to the next world, the world of Kiva. We end the episode with Kuuga putting flowers on Yashiro's grave as a mysterious white bat shows up. And that's it for these 2 episodes. They were nice. Next time we should be covering Kiva's storyline, and we should be going strong throughout the whole series, though, as the year-end video did mention, we won't be covering anything past Decade. Now remember, our links are in the description, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe, or else YouTube's gonna steal my lungs. Catch you later.